on Spotlight, how to move past dreaming big and set a course for success. What can Detroiters learn from these risk takers, and might it help our entire city, region, and state? One of our guests today will explain how it takes both courage and practical know-how before you take that big leap of faith. He'll also explain what his little pink bike has to do with all of this. Tim Smith is CEO of Skidmore Studio and the author of a brand new book called Dare Mighty Things, a field guide for millennial entrepreneurs. And later, we'll talk firsthand with two up-and-coming entrepreneurs from Detroit, retailer Rachel Lutz and marketing brand specialist Tamara Hurd. We'll begin at our downtown studio and eventually work our way back here to Southfield. It's Sunday, June the 25th. I'm Chuck Stokes, and this is Spotlight. And welcome to Spotlight from our downtown home here at theCUBE. Joining me is Tim Smith. He is the owner and founder of Skidmore Studios, but you've got a new book is what you're out there championing right now. And the new book is called Dare Mighty Things, a field guide for millennial entrepreneurs. How did you get this idea, Tim?
You know, it's a funny story. My son, who just graduated from college, was 22 years old, and was looking at one of the field guides that Taylor Bruce produced here in Detroit, and he said, man, Dad, if there was a book like this for college grads who wanted to be entrepreneurs, you would just kill it. And I looked at him and I said, that's a great idea, Hayden. And so it went from there, and 18 months later, it's a reality, which is kind of a big mind blow for me. It's pretty awesome.
Was it hard to do, first of all?
Yes, it was. Everyone says writing the book is incredibly hard. And I said, you know, I'm a journalism major. How hard can it be?
Right.
Well, it's really hard. It is, but it was so fulfilling, so fun. Just the people I met and I talked to probably 20 millennial entrepreneurs and profiled 11 of them. And they're just such amazing stories, and that made it really fun.
Well, I liked the line when you talked about whenever you felt a little difficulty in writing, that your wife helped you out, gave you encouragement, and a little bourbon.
A little bourbon. She would come upstairs with some 2 James, so shout out to 2 James guys.
Something about journalism and bourbon, they go hand in hand.
Go together, yes.
All right. Tell us about these entrepreneurs.
If I wanted to write a field guide and a how-to, I wanted to be able to have somebody pick it up and say, this is what I can do. And I really discovered after talking to all these people that there's 7 key personas that all of these millennial entrepreneurs are able to navigate to. And everyone's familiar with the Waze app. And what these entrepreneurs do is they really are taking off and putting on hats constantly. At one point in time, they're a rule breaker, and then they say, oh, I need to be a planner now, and now I've got to jump into visionary mode, and now I've got to go into a different mode that might be a kind of a adventurer mode. And so there are 7 of them that every single person I talk to at one point or another had to navigate to. And so the idea is if you're a millennial entrepreneur up and coming, and you figure out that I can go through these different personas, it's going to make your journey way more successful and way quicker.
After talking with them, Tim, is it your sense that this generation of millennials are sort of like that early 1900 generation of Americans, that they want to create and do their own thing? They don't want to just kind of submerge into these bigger corporations and stay there for 30 years.
I feel like, you know, there's a lot of these, and I talk about myth busting in the millennial generations, and there's a lot of negativity that goes on, but there's so much positivity that's not being talked about, and you hit it on the head. They really do want to make a mark. They really do want to help make a difference. And some of them feel this very early urge to make a difference on their own, and some of them feel this, I call them intrapreneurs. They feel like they want to come into a company and help make a difference there. So they have this, what I love about them, and I feel like maybe I've got a little millennial early blood in me as well, is they like the rule break. They like to say, well, just because that's the way it's always been done.
Challenge the system, status quo.
That may not be the best way. So
yeah, I kind of get that from the 2 millennials in my family. Do you think this generation is more motivated by money or by the love of what they want to do?
Absolutely, it's the love of what they want to do. I mean, certainly there are people out there that want to make a good living. They want to have the ability.
They want to be able to pay the bills.
Sure, but they also want to be able to, and every person that I talked to, money was way down the list.
Is that right?
Way down the list. They had this vision and this passion. People were jumping off 6- and 7-figure jobs in order to do something and take a chance.
Because they weren't happy?
Exactly. They weren't feeling fulfilled. They weren't feeling like that was their destiny. That was what they were meant to do. There's a guy in Chicago, he was in a real estate career making really good money, and he decided he was going to start making watches. And he started making watches one at a time, and now I have both of his watches, and they're phenomenal. And he didn't do it for the money. He did it because that's what he felt like he was meant to do. And I see that time and time again. Alex Clark at Bon Bon Bon, she just felt like, this is what I was meant to do. Naila Ellis at Ellis Island Tea, this is what I was meant to do. So, man, they're being successful because of the passion, not because of this drive to make a buck.
You're surrounded by millennials at Skidmore Studios, so you work with them every day.
Sure.
As you look at Detroit and you look what's going on now, you look at your own corporation, what thought comes to mind in terms of where you think we're headed?
It's such potential, such enthusiasm about what's next, and everyone is talking about what's next. We've made, we moved down to Detroit 5.5 years ago, and just the difference between then and now.
No regrets?
No, not at all. It was the best decision I've ever made in my business life to move down here, other than buying the studio and maybe writing a book.
Okay.
But, man, there is such opportunity and such growth that's going to happen, and everyone I talk to, I have millennial sons. They're just graduating. They're getting ready to come back to Detroit. Everyone's enthusiastic about it.
All right. The book, once again, is Dear Mighty Things, a field guide for millennial entrepreneurs. You can get it at Amazon.com.
It's at Books A Million. You can go to tm-smith.com, and there's a place where you can pre-order there as well.
All right. You were at Mackinac.
Yes.
You talked with some young people, young entrepreneurs.
Right. The future leaders.
What is it you wanted to impart to them, and what did you get potentially from them?
Well, what I wanted to impart from them is that as a baby boomer, as somebody that is at an older generation, that there are people out there that want to support and want to encourage the way that they want to behave and what they want to do. I want them to live their life. And what I got from them was just this endless supply of enthusiasm and really a want to make a mark on the world. And that is such a great thing to have. And we need them so much here in Detroit and across the country that when we engage with them, man, the sky's the limit.
All right. If you go get the book, don't look for Tim Smith, look for T.M. Smith.
Too many Tim Smiths in the world.
Otherwise, they'll be searching for a little while.
Right.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, John.
All right. It's always a pleasure sitting down and talking with you.
This was fun.
And coming up, we'll talk to 2 millennial entrepreneurs about their business and why they decided to step out there on that limb and fulfill their dream. We'll be right back. Don't go away. And welcome back to Spotlight. We've now left the Cube downtown. We're back here in Southfield for sort of a case in point of what Tim Smith has been talking about. And joining me is Rachel Lutz and Tamara Hurd. And welcome to Spotlight to both of you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, fill in the blank for me, young entrepreneurs. My dream is, Rachel?
What I'm doing right now.
You're living your dream.
I'm living the dream, absolutely.
All right.
Yep.
And we'll find out a little bit more about your background in just a second. Tamara, same question.
My dream is kind of to piggyback off of Rachel, but to continue and to develop more and grow more and to continue to help others along my journey.
All right.
Yeah.
Your businesses. Your business is the Peacock Room and Frida.
Yes.
Both women's clothing stores.
Yes, 2 clothing boutiques in Midtown Detroit.
All right. You're right stone's throw from the DIA, the Detroit Historical Museum. You're in the Park Shelton building, Wayne State, Midtown. So you're right in the hub of everything, and you can step out your door and jump on the queue line. Right?
I can. It's amazing. I love it.
You love it? All
Yeah.
right. Very good. You have a marketing business, and you do, well, you explain it.
So Corporate 52 is a promotional advertising, specialty advertising, branding company. The new word now is swag. And we provide a huge array of promotional branded items, just from pins to apparel to just about anything you need your logo on.
All right.
Yes.
Your business is how old?
5.5 years.
And your business is how old?
3 years.
All right.
Yes.
Some of your clients so far?
Detroit Tigers, one of my biggest,
Not a bad
and most
client.
supportive.
I've heard of them. Yeah.
Yes, and MGM, Honda, and probably most importantly, I do a lot of work with the small businesses in the city of Detroit, which is very rewarding. Partner with the Detroit Development Fund as a technical assistance provider, and they send their loan customers to Corporate 52 Marketing Group to better help them get their brand out there.
All right, the Detroit Development Fund, for people who don't realize, that's the group that Ray Waters
Yes.
is in charge of.
Yes.
He's done a phenomenal job,
Certainly.
and
Yes.
has helped a lot of entrepreneurs
Certainly.
chase their dreams all
Yes.
around this building.
Certainly me as well, yes.
All right. Frida, you came out of the political world, and now you're in the fashion merchandising world. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you made the transition and why you made the transition.
Well, from politics to sales is really the same thing if you think about it. You are listening.
All right, wait a minute, hold on. Before you go there, you just kind of glazed on that from politics to sales. You actually worked at the White House, right?
Well, I worked for the White House as a traveling advance person.
All right. And
So I traveled on behalf of the President, Vice President, First Lady back in 98 to 2000.
So that would have been Bill Clinton's administration,
The Clinton
President
era,
Bill
yes,
Clinton?
yep.
All right.
And it was a lot of fun, but that administration ended and I went back to Wayne State, figured out, maybe I want to go from political science to public relations. And if you think about it, politics is just like sales. You have to listen to who you're serving. You have to figure out what the solution is and try to make a case for it. So it's no different than a woman coming in, figuring out what dress she needs and dressing her.
When the two of you set up your businesses in Detroit, that was 5 or so years ago. That was before everything started really taking off. That was sort of a stab in the dark, so to speak, correct?
People told me that nobody was opening businesses in Detroit. People told me that retail was dying, and I'm proud to report that those are both incorrect.
Okay, you're doing well.
It was seen as a big risk at the time. I started out my business maxing out a $6,500 credit card, and now we do north of $650,000 a year in sales.
Excellent, very good. Tamara, same thing. When you started your business, it was you left corporate America?
I did actually recently, and but I was juggling both, and I just decided to take that step.
Why?
It was time, and it just kept nagging at me. I would sometimes kind of put things on a back burner with my company, and something was always just kind of nudging at me that this is what I was supposed to do.
Any regrets by the two of you? Is this the perfect time to have started what you started?
I used to have the regret of not getting started sooner because I really love what I'm doing, but looking back, I think it just happened at the right time in my life, and I think that that's really important for entrepreneurs to know that you have to figure out when the right opportunity comes along. You can't force it, you can't drag your feet, the timing has to be right. So I don't really regret much about my journey so far, as long as I'm learning from it.
Okay. I've always heard that small business is the backbone of America. I've also heard that those first 5 to 7 years are the most challenging. When we come back from this break, I want you to tell me about some of the hurdles the two of you had to overcome. We'll be right back with Rachel and Tamara. And welcome back to Spotlight. Okay, challenges. I don't know an entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur, that did not have some challenges in their life that they had to overcome. Tamara, let's talk about some of the challenges you've had to overcome.
Some of my challenges were initially starting my business, I didn't have the resources, and I didn't really know where to go. So I started a lot of it just kind of in the dark, if that makes sense. Just kind of trial and error. Yes.
Made some mistakes?
Certainly, yes.
You grew from the mistakes?
Totally. Totally grew from it, yes. And, you know, it's every day is a work in progress, so, yes.
And you don't look back?
Never.
Okay.
Yes.
Rachel?
Oh, money. It's always a challenge for a small business owner. Unless you just, you know, you're lucky starting out.
Getting loans and
getting started, getting loans.
Because you're expanding your business, correct?
Yeah, oh yeah, we're doing a major expansion this year. So a lot of people ask me, so where did you get your loans and grants? And I said, I don't know. Why don't you tell me where there's some available? Because there are so many people that come to me with awesome ideas, but they expect the magical money fairy to drop a sack of money in their lap. And I wish that that happened, but unfortunately it doesn't. There aren't a lot of easy bank loans that you can get. I will be trying to work with Invest Detroit, which is a great resource in the city for business owners. To get started, I took classes from SCORE through the Small Business Administration, TechTown. I've helped teach classes at Build Institute, which is a great resource for entrepreneurs.
Right, we just did an interview with them a few weeks back. Awesome
resource. So the resources are out there if you want to work for them, but I hate to say that, you know, no one's gonna do it for you. You either have to find it and go after it. That can also take a lot of your time and energy. So what I preferred to do was, you know, I self-financed, and then I also was very fortunate to get an angel loan paid back within the first year at 0% interest from a family member.
So what would the two of you really like to see? Because competition in business is always the name of the game. It can either be good or it can be bad. In your end, in terms of retail, we're always hearing we need big box retail in Detroit, and we haven't gotten that yet because we don't have the number of people, the base. You always hear, you know, this the chicken and the egg type of thing, where you can't get a major department store or a Target's or Walmart or something like that until you have enough people base. We might be getting closer to that with all the young people that are moving into Detroit and all the different businesses, but would that be good or bad for you?
I would argue that we're actually already there. The big corporations just don't see it. The DEGC does studies regularly on
Detroit Economic Growth Corporation.
The Detroit Economic Growth Corporation. They do studies on how much Detroiters have and how much they spend, but they're not spending it in the city because we're not giving them enough options. So I would welcome competition. There's a market out there. I mean, I found mine, but there's more out there, and Detroiters need to be served. So I think that there is not just a market for big box retail, there's a need for it. I, as an independent retailer, I want big box stores. That's what my customers want. That's what Detroit residents want. We want a mix of, you know, large scale and small and unique.
Okay. Yeah. Tamara, same with you. That's a competitive business that you're in.
Extremely. It is. You know, but
there are already a lot of people doing marketing.
Totally, and I find that when people like you and they respect you and they have confidence in you, they'll work with you.
So it's about finding your niche and about developing that client base and networking.
Absolutely, yes. And you know, just for the Detroit Tigers, for instance, you know, it's a huge competitive space. Suppliers from all over the country, you know, and you know, to be awarded the award that we won last year, the most valuable diverse business partner. It was huge, and that just shows our tenacity in that, you know, we break through barriers, and you know, we're striving to get to the platforms to where the bigger companies, you know, are operating.
Well, the good thing for you is that the Illich companies are expanding in the city of Detroit, not running from the city of Detroit, building a new world headquarters there, and then of course the new arena will be opening up in just a matter of months as well. Long-term goals?
Long-term goals, to serve as many people as I can. I've been told that we offer an experience almost like Hudson's or Jacobson's, and I want to bring that to as many women as possible, whether that's through expanding to online, e-commerce, and taking the Detroit brand nationally, internationally, and really just expanding into neighborhoods. You know, a lot of this growth downtown is wonderful, but I really want to see that growth spread out to the neighborhoods.
Do you do a decent amount of selling via the internet now? Because everybody's always ordering. I see a lot of boxes come to my house, and they're never for me. but I know that out of those boxes come apparel many times.
Yeah.
Are you getting into that niche as well as people just walking into the store?
If we are able to offer our level of service in a cardboard box, and that's something we're trying to figure out how to do. Yes, but you mentioned competition earlier. We have competition online, but online doesn't give you a fitting room or a salesperson to help advise you.
That
and it
people-to-people
doesn't.
People service.
Correct. This morning I was answering a question on our Facebook page for the Peacock Room asking about the material on a dress. How does it feel? And I said, well, here's how I would describe it, but you have to come into the store and experience it.
Yeah.
So there is some type of experience that I have to figure out how to scale that while maintaining my brand integrity and maintaining our level of service.
And I would argue we've lost a lot of that on all different levels in our society. Something we used to have when we were growing up, and there was always that people-to-people service. Now everything is either online or you know, you can't understand the people sometimes when you know, when you're trying to do stuff. So this is, I would argue, it's a good thing to be able to have. Long-term goals.
Long-term goal would to definitely be to expand into the luxury branding, if you will, perhaps like.
Explain for those who know, what is luxury branding?
So luxury branding would be, so say a company was the only source of, you know, promotional advertising or marketing for a company like Lexus or, you know, or whatever, any type of automotive company,
okay,
or high-end retail. So they would call my company, and we would be the sole source for their supplies of promotional advertising.
Quick final question. We'll end sort of the way we began. 10 years from now, Detroit will be fill in the blank.
Too big for me to keep up with. I mean, it's a lot for me to keep up with now. When I first moved into the city in '98, I was telling Tamira, I remember when the skyline was almost completely dark, and we were just desperate to support any new business, whether it was a good one or a bad one, just so that they could exist. And I can't even keep up with all the new restaurants opening, the new stores. So I think 10 years from now, it'll be too much for me to keep up with.
All right, Tamira, 10 years from now, Detroit will be
huge, bigger than New York. Hustle, bustle.
Bigger than New York? Oh. we got some work to do.
I hope all those people need dresses.
In spirit. Okay.
Yes.
All right, we'll put some qualifiers around that. All right. Tamira Hurd with the Corporate 52 Marketing Group. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Rachel Lutz with the Peacock Room, and Frida, thank you for joining us. We'll be right back on Spotlight. You know, since that interview, Rachel Lutz recently announced that she is opening up another women's retail store dedicated to contemporary women. The 2,000 square foot store will be called Yama, and it will exist on the first floor of the historic Fisher Building in Midtown. I'm Chuck Stokes. We'll be back next week with more newsmakers in the Spotlight. We hope you have a great week.